Welcome, all you wonderful Orville and Star Trek fans. It's time for another episode of the Union Federation podcast where we cover everything that's happening with both Star Trek and the Orville here on the Fandom Podcast Network, as well as the BQN Network. We got a very special live show here for you tonight. The Orville is back. We are incredibly excited, but we got it's too big. I can't do it alone. I need a full crew, and luckily I do have a full crew, and it always starts off too with our top-notch ship's counselor plus our emergency holographic captain, Miss Amy Nelson.
Well, hello, and so excited to be back and to be live. Hello, everyone.
Yes, we are live. We're again excited. I'm overflowing because we got so much to talk about, and like I said, I got the full complement of crew here, which means I also have the top-notch science officer, and she is a whiz on the phasers, and she might have gotten a new toy, but for this week's episode, which we're going to talk about later. She is, of course, the lovely Haley Stoddard.
Hello. So excited to be here. Lovely to see the Orville back. I'm stoked.
Yes. Stoked is a very good word, especially when it comes to the Orville. And of course, the man who loves the Orville more than just about anything these days. He's also he's our top-notch security officer, but he's also managing the communications tonight as he's kind of monitoring our live chat as we go through here. So please drop your comments, give us your thoughts as we go along. And of course, he is back for the show after a little hiatus. It is the man of marriage now, Mr. Kevin Reitzel.
Hey everybody, good to be back. Sorry, I caught a little bit of a head and chest cold while I was doing the Star Trek bingo when I was trying to do the medical tricorder challenge. I think a tribble got in there as well, and I got something stuck in my throat.
Be honest, Kevin, you tried that crazy paste the doctor had, and that's what did it.
Yeah, it had something to do with Andorians, so you got to watch out there.
So we have an absolutely huge episode. The Orville is back. We have been waiting almost 3 years for this, and we're not going to waste any time. We're going to get right into it. So I'm going to activate the quantum drive. Now, for all of you watching live at home, and for those of you who will be listening maybe later on our podcast or watching this on the Fandom Podcast Network YouTube channel, there's something I have to do first before we go any further. That is right. We are going to be diving into the season premiere of Orville Season 3, New Orville, New Horizons, as well as the latest episode of Strange New Worlds, Spock, Amok. It's going to be a lot of fun, but without further ado, let's just get into it. Guys, the Orville is back. It's been 3 years since we've seen the Orville. COVID delays. It's on a streaming network now. It's on Hulu. We got lots of changes going on. But let's dive into it because it's episode 1 of season 3, Electric Sheep. Now, Miss Nelson, would you care to take us out of Federation space here to let us know give us our first captain's log for the Orville because it's been so long.
It has been, and I just when they said activate the quantum drive, I got so happy. So glad to be going out. Well, as the Orville is refit following the battle against the Kalon, excuse me, most of the crew, including Marcus Finn and newly assigned ensign Charlie Burke, struggle with Isaac's presence on board. After significant conflict with the crew and Marcus saying he wishes Isaac would die, Isaac commits suicide via EMP. Lamar discovers a way to restore Isaac, but it requires Charlie's special skills, and she refuses to help. Marcus pleads with her to help, and she relents.
Okay, guys, we're going to get into some of the heavier topics when we get to our away missions, but I want everybody's first reactions because it's been so long since we've been able to absorb the Orville. It's back. It was a longer episode premiere. So many new things, yet so many things the same. Guys, I loved it. It was just so great to have it back on my TV. But Kevin, I want to let you start because let's get you while your voice is still good here a little bit too. You have been one of the biggest Orville fans I know. So we're back. New Horizons is here. First reactions.
Oh, it was just, it's like coming home again. We waited so long. And also too, a little like kind of bummed that this is going to be the last season, as far as we know. And I just took it all in, and it was interesting. I wasn't sure what to expect going into it, but I was looking at the aesthetic changes, little things to the uniforms, the change to Isaac. He looked a little more different as well. But I was kind of curious to see if where the story was going to go with that first episode, and I'm glad they took the time to handle a heavy topic such as suicide, but also they didn't gloss over what happened in the last season with the Kaylon War, and that it's still a thing and it's still an issue, and that we see the Orville basically getting retrofitted, and kind of like the Union. Union ships kind of in repair docks, so to speak, I guess, and seeing the crew handle the issues with Isaac and with each other, and just seeing other sides of it. And it was nice to kind of see how it was affecting people, yet also letting you know that stuff's changing with the Orville and the Orville ship itself. And I thought it was a good dramatic thing that the Orville has been good at tackling such issues, and we'll get into that later, that they're not afraid to do that right out of the bat, so I thought that was really, really cool. And I like the introduction of Charlie Burke as well, and we'll get into that as well.
Amy, your first reactions?
Yeah, like Kevin said, just so good to see the crew back together. A great introduction to Charlie Burke. I loved all the fly arounds and the battle or the simulation, where they're testing out that new shuttlecraft. Like, it was so beautiful. And I really was impressed with the music. You guys, like, the music was on point. The suspense of Marcus's dream sequence that we started, and that drone and shuttlecraft practice, that was exciting music. And it was almost sort of Western. I don't know. It was just so much fun. And even during Isaac's suicide, like, the music added so much more to the feeling. And then there was this silence when Dr. Finn was on the simulation, and when she was, at the restaurant, that was complete silence. So they really were on point with the music, when to use it and when not to use it. And I just have to give a shout out to Yaphet and the dedication of Norm Macdonald at the beginning was very nice and good to see.
Yeah, it was. Haley, this episode, I was actually thinking of you a lot as I was watching this episode, with some of the themes it had and stuff like that. Like, so we'll get into that a little bit, but it was back. It was big. It was beautiful, and it was just so. It felt like we were gone, but we weren't gone, because it really did feel like we were just kind of hopping right back into that, like, warm glow feeling that the Orville likes to give.
Yeah, the themes in this episode, I'm really glad that they addressed it. I think it was really nice to see that. Definitely really quite heavy, I think, for a topic for the Orville to cover. We're discussing harassment and hatred and then suicide, and the entire episode is just really about those three things, and how every person that we see is dealing with those emotions, and then after Isaac kills himself, what each person is feeling, which is really, really quite interesting. And I really loved how they addressed this in this episode. I'm glad to see it back. I forgot that it's been 3 years. And so I actually went back and I watched, like, someone did a little YouTube, like, recap of the season, because I completely was like, I don't have time to watch all of these episodes to remember where we're at. So that was super helpful. I do have, like, a few little things that I was just not quite super happy with. But as far as coming out of the gate from where we left off the last time we saw this crew, I think it was a really well done episode again to address this issue with Isaac and the Kaylon, and how this crew is going to move forward from that.
Yeah, no, I think they did a beautiful job. Like I said, I was just happy. I was so happy to see it back. It felt like the same show, but it did feel like something new. And I know we're going to talk about that. But guys, I want to get into a little bit of the Easter eggs from this episode as well, because we had some interesting ones to go to. Amy, you mentioned it too. The opening up with the wonderful tribute to Norm Macdonald. Obviously, he played Yaphet in 16 episodes. It was a little heart wrenching with the Yaphet scenes. It made it a little tough. Another fun thing, Isaac says he is functioning within normal parameters. The same response often uttered by Data in Star Trek: The Next Generation. Amy, I know that was giving you some feels.
Yep, I wrote that down in my notes, so glad we're covering it.
Also, too, we had the relationship, Kevin, by the famous book, Philip K. Dick. Do androids dream of electric sheep? Obviously, the basis for the movie Blade Runner, but very fitting for this episode as well.
Definitely, and if you're a Blade Runner fan, you know about that famous book as well. So yeah, definitely had feels.
Yeah. Jenny Turco has been promoted to a full lieutenant. This one's for you though, Haley, because I know you love your submarine movies. When Ed orders the shuttle to be filled with torpedoes, Kelly asks him, "Submarine warfare?" After launching, the shuttle is blown up, hiding in a storm. The explosion appears to the Kalons as if they'd blown up the Orville, ejecting debris, oil, and even bodies from a submarine in an attempt to fool attackers into thinking the submarine had been destroyed was a tactic used in Operation Petticoat, U-571, and Run Silent, Run Deep.
Hold on. Haley is a submarine movie fan as well? Because I am.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do. I love my submarine movies, and I definitely was thinking those same things. So yes, yeah.
One ping only.
Yes.
Real quick, by the way, Jenny Turco. Do you guys know who that character is from the previous season? She was seen briefly in this episode. In this episode, you saw Lamar. And the girl that he's with saying, "Oh, you like the ladies." Well, remember the episode where our captain is kind of bored and he's going around to people's places to figure out things to do? Well, she was the ensign that was in the room with him, and I think they might have been smoking something, and she just had like the top jacket on, and I think that was when the captain played the game with the egg. Latchcomb. What's it called? Latchcomb. Yes. So anyway, that's who that is. So she's a somewhat regular, I guess. So yeah.
We've got one more little piece of trivia, but I'm going to save that for our second away mission because it ties in well with what we're talking about there. So without further ado, then I think it is time to access the transporter, because even though they don't have that quite yet, but I got a little piece of futuristic technology that's going to fix that problem. I'm activating the transporter so we can start some Orville away missions. Okay, guys. First up, away mission number 1, coming to grips with trauma. Big theme in this week's episode was running throughout it, and obviously it was picking up from not so much the season finale, but obviously what happened with the Kalon War and what happened with it. And you have so many different perspectives here. Everybody's trying to deal with their own trauma, also dealing with the uncomfortableness of Isaac being on the ship. And we see the scenes where Isaac gets ostracized. We see everybody just kind of dealing with it in their own way. And I think they did a fabulous job with this. It was very heavy, but yet they still seem to find a way to look at it from a lot of different perspectives. And I think I give them a lot of credit for that. I'm going to start with our ship's counselor, Amy, because this everybody was going through this trauma in different ways, whether it was from Marcus to our newer character, our new ensign, to just everyone on the ship, even Mercer having his own doubts. How do you feel that the Orville handled a very heavy topic for this show?
Yeah, there was a lot to unpack here, and I have a couple things that I really want to focus on. And that was sort of one thing that Charlie was able to do sort of at the beginning, which I found interesting, and sort of went over this arc of coming to grips with trauma, where they're reinstituting Isaac, and Charlie gets Captain Mercer, to say, yeah, I'm questioning whether he's here, but we need him for tactical reasons. Like, But Mercer, says, I question if it's the right thing to do. And she also gets Malloy to say, yeah, I haven't shared my feelings, but I don't think Isaac should be here either. So there's this taking sides that come across as sort of the lower decks versus our main crew, which I find very interesting. I really enjoyed when Dr. Finn, she has these two children. And again, as you talked about, Kyle, when you're saying it's coming from different perspectives, like Dr. Finn, man, she has to cover all the bases, especially with Marcus and where he has this guilt. And I love her discussion and how she is patient, but yet showing love and support, even when he's not talking to her. Yeah, oh, I know you're awake. I just wouldn't even know what to say, but she does it brilliantly. And then the one that really got my heart was with Ty when he was in the simulators. And he was just like, I just want to talk to Isaac. And she has this amazing teaching moment, which I have thought about many times watching Star Trek, and like, how would we use the holodeck? Would we, bring back those who we have lost? And Dr. Finn, she just does a great job in explaining it's only hindering your healing process. It's a substitute. It's not real. And I really enjoyed that teaching moment that she had with both of her sons.
Haley, obviously there's some real life connection, a little bit of real life connections with you with some of these things. What did you think of the episode? I mean, we had some major things going on here, including the harassment of Isaac, as well as we found later on it was Marcus dealing with his grief and his anger and his hurt. How do you feel they portrayed this and how they handled it?
Well, and I think what's great is they showed the different ways that people go about this. Everyone, based off of their history and their past, will approach trauma, will approach anger in very different ways. And some people will be silent. You see Isaac walking down the halls, people just kind of turn and look at him, but they don't say anything, they don't do anything, but they're leery, they're kind of going a little farther away when they pass him, or they're getting up and they're not wanting to sit with him in the mess hall. To Marcus, who's having nightmares because he had a closer connection to Isaac, even though Isaac doesn't have emotions, he still had a closer connection to him. So it's a little more personal. And so his reactions to scrawl murder on the wall seems really appropriate. And his anger about the situation and lashing out seems way more appropriate. Charlie, she's coming and she's saying, hey, here's my personal experience. We don't like you. No one wants you to be around, to Marcus saying you should die for what you did. It's really quite interesting to just see the different ways that this happens, because this is how it happens in real life. I agree with Amy where, Dr. Finn is addressing this issue not only with herself and how she's going to cope with all of this, because she's struggling with it too, and she's coming at it from a different angle, but then she's also got to address it with her two kids who, again, had personal relationships with Isaac and are having immensely different reactions regarding the situation. And I think one of my favorite things at the end of the episode, when Claire is talking to Isaac, trying to have basically a counseling session with him. How do you have a counseling session with someone who doesn't have emotions? Because everything in this episode was emotion-based. It was emotions from the rest of the crew regarding Isaac and their feelings towards him and about him. And then he cannot express any of that back, but clearly everything had an effect on him because he kills himself. And she's doing this risk assessment, which in counseling we do that. And she's also creating a crisis plan with him. If you ever are having continued problems, please come talk to me. We need to talk about this before it escalates further. And so it's very real because I do that in my work. So I liked how they addressed this, because I felt like so many times in Star Trek, this was just really brushed aside. And I think one of the biggest things in this was it made me think of Seven from Deep Space or from Voyager. Sorry, I'm going to confuse my Star Treks here, because she gets this astrometrics lab where she can kind of be isolated from the crew and still work and do things. And this is going to be the same thing with Isaac. I think he's not really ever going to leave that lab. We're going to see a few people who do trust him. And I say trust extremely loosely because the captain's not even sure if he should trust him at this point. And so I think we're going to see a few select people from, engineering are going to go, because obviously a lot of the crew down there were okay with him. I think we're going to see them go to him in the lab, but I think he's going to stay there. I don't think he's ever really going to be anywhere else anymore, at least for a while. And I think this will definitely be picked up again later in the season somehow.
Kevin, one of the big interesting things to me with how they dealt with this was how many different perspectives they gave it, where there were people who were just accepting Isaac was back. For instance, Ty kind of looking at it through the eyes of a child who just sees his friend is back. I think they covered all the degrees of the rainbow here, from welcome back to that uncertainty, to that doubt, to that anger and frustration, to that pure hatred. And I think they handled it so well. How did you feel about all of this? And even from the Isaac perspective, because they kept trying to play it up. Oh, he's a machine. Well, except he commits suicide.
Yeah, it made me think about other famous machines in our fandom, and one of the most famous ones is Data. What if there was an episode where Data committed suicide because something happened? And Data seems more he seems more human to us because of things that he learns along the way. And whether it takes a while for him to understand a joke or what have you, he slowly starts to kind of get things, and that's one of the things about it. But for Isaac, he's just a straight up robot, and he doesn't comprehend the gravity of the human emotion and how that affects the way that we think and act and treat others. And I think that it was a brave choice to have someone like Isaac realize what he has done and his reactions, his presence aboard the ship. And he felt that in his own computer mind and way was like, maybe it's better that I'm not here anymore. And that is a sad but true reflection on what people are feeling human-wise when they take their lives. And, even though, Dr. Finn says it was a wrong decision, there's always help and there's another way out there. There's just a lot of people that don't see that and don't make the choice to try to do that. So it was a heavy way to make a machine make that decision. And I thought it was a brilliant thing to do, to say, hey, look, how can we challenge ourselves as writers on the show by having a machine decide that the right thing to do was to end their life cycle, or however you want to put it, and I think one of the standouts for me regarding this issue alone and the pushback that he gets from the crew, and I want to give a shout out to BJ Tanner, who plays Marcus Finn, the older brother of Dr. Finn. He really stood out in this episode for me because everything that he felt, everything that he said was not wrong. Normally, when you see kids express their frustration, or kid characters on TV and movie, and then sometimes in real life, or a lot, there's always something that they say or do that makes, they're just a kid. They don't see the whole picture. Marcus is not like that at all. Everything that he was saying, everything that he was calling his mom on, I thought was done really, really well with his character and delivered very well by actor BJ Tanner. That when you look at the of what he's going through, it's a reflection of what everyone else is doing. I mean, he was the one that opened up to this nightmare, in this episode. And I also liked at the end of the episode, he's dealing with the fact that obviously Isaac killed himself. But then when Isaac comes back, you see him still not sure how to deal with him. He comes in, he's looking at him at the end there, and you're wondering, like, is he going to say something? Is he going to apologize? No, he's still struggling. And I think that was really realistic and important that the show handle it that way. And this is just one of the things that makes Orville special in its own way, that they handle these topics in their own flavor with the characters. And I always thought that was a good thing. And this is a good example of that.
Yeah, one of the things that I think it was a great line by Dr. Finn when she's talking about suicide, how people who commit suicide can't discern the present from the future. And I think with Isaac especially, that played up, especially in the conversation she had not that long later on in the episode with Isaac, once he had been revived, about how he only compiled it upon data he currently had. He didn't think about how it would affect people afterwards. And I think that's a great way to get that message across. And I think they did a phenomenal job with that. And we've seen the Orville in the past handle some very heavy topics. But guys, I'm going to be honest with you. I think this is the heaviest topic they have handled since the incarnation of the show. And that's saying a lot, because I go back to the episode 3 of the first season, which was a very heavy topic too. But this one, because again, it wasn't just about the suicide that Isaac did. It was about all of them dealing with the trauma they had gone through and trying to find their ways to move forward. And I just think it was done so very well. So, any other comments before we move on to our next away mission, guys? No? Okay, well, let's move on to away mission number 2, because the Orville is back, and it's a little new. It's New Horizons. It's on Hulu now. They've got a bigger budget. They've got more flexibility being under a streaming umbrella. And I think it really showed in this episode. So I want to get everybody's thoughts here on what was their impressions of what was new with the Orville, what they liked, maybe something that didn't stick out. Haley, you said you had a few issues there. So I'm actually going to let you kick it off. What did you like and what did you dislike about the return of the Orville with the changes they've implemented?
Well, interestingly enough, because I don't have television, I've actually been watching it on Hulu, because that's where it's been dropping. So kind of not new for me per se. I will say my biggest thing is I don't like the look of the ship on the outside. It's gray, it's paneled. I liked when it was white and it was sleek and it was kind of different, because we see so much gray colored ships in everything else that is Star Trek, that is Star Wars. So I liked the difference. And so I'm kind of a little bummed about that. I liked that contrast of the white to blue. I thought that was really, really kind of just crisp. And now it's gray and blue, and it just looks like so many other things I watch that are sci-fi. I do like the paneling, I think, as far as like the bridge panels and the displays. Really, really awesome. I like those updated looks. Ed and Kelly's chairs look probably a little bit better as far as like captain and first commander kind of goes. And then really the rest of the ship looks just about the same, which is kind of nice. I like that. I did like getting to see where their quantum drive is. That was really cool. That was kind of my biggest thing, was just I'm not crazy about the outside of the ship.
Well, okay.
It's going to bug me the entire time.
Amy, what about you? Because I know you are an expert at picking up on differences here, and I think there was a lot of things that stood out with that you could tell a difference of from this transition from being on network Fox TV to now being on Hulu, and the flexibility I think it really gave the writers and the creators.
Yeah, I mentioned it sort of at the top, sort of with the music, how I really enjoyed that. Like, it was really spot on and really brought the drama to it. I didn't notice too much about the changes of the ship, but the flybys, like the whole cinematography of it all, really blew me away. And all of the flybys, and you get to see the ship on all these different angles from the beginning, from the front, and the back and the top and the bottom, and just all of it really showcased it. I did have one question, and I know it's not fitting in, but I do want to ask, when the ship left, right, and they went into quantum drive, were they going someplace specific? Weren't they still in Union space? But then they got attacked by a Kalon. And I'm like, wasn't there some kind of treaty where they're like, this is our space and this is your space? Like, why were they instantly attacked and weren't they so close to a starbase? I got a little confused with that.
I thought the treaty was with the Krill.
Yeah.
Okay, so the Kalon are just out attacking anyone. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Mr. Reitzel, I know you've been watching very closely the changes as the pictures, photos have been coming out, new footage, trailers, things like that. How are you feeling about this new quote unquote new look for the Orville on Hulu?
I know it's silly, but in the back of my mind, knowing that it was going to be on Hulu, I was on cuss count. Like, was there going to be some cussing? Are they going to take some liberties with language? And we only got one, really. It was the BS word done by Marcus when he was upset there. But I noticed the episode was, obviously a little over an hour, which was nice. And I felt it was still paced right. I didn't feel like it, it needed to be shorter, it needed to be longer. And I think that being on Hulu, this allows them to do that. And I like that freedom. Regarding the look of the Orville, I hadn't really taken a strong notice of it because it felt, it seems like a lot of it, you see it in Space Dock, but then when you see it later on, I have to look at that again, Haley, and come back to you on that because I'm kind of curious because I do like the original version and the way it looked. So it's kind of like the way I felt getting used to the Enterprise E. And I'll be honest with you, I never got used to the look of the Enterprise E. To me, it was the D or anything before that, but the E still doesn't quite sit with me. But I like the science station that they have now, which I think is really cool. It kind of reminds me of the astrometrics room I think that the E had. Or whatever it was that was used in TNG, the movies, or is that Astro whatever room. But I like it when they add new sets, new rooms or whatever to any new like ship and stuff like that. And I thought that was kind of cool. And maybe it's a safe space for Isaac to be in. But I'd like to see more stuff happening there. And I did enjoy the changes of little things like the way that Isaac looked as well, and I'm curious to see how other ships within the Union are going to do, like the big admiral ships or whatever you call them. I'm curious to see if there's going to be a little bit different change there. So, but I did find it interesting that the quantum drive, that big bouldery thing, reminded me of the beryllium spear in Galaxy Quest that they had to get. Did anyone else get that?
Actually,
that
I did, and I just watched the end of Galaxy Quest on TV today. So yeah, I know
totally
exactly
reminded me of. Oh, that's like the beryllium spear that they needed it. So I thought that was kind of fun. But now to get back to the original topic though of the whole Hulu thing, it's not really. I'm not really concerned with the changes or the extra freedom or whatever it is. I'm more concerned about that this is probably going to be the last season, and it's going to kind of take a miracle for a new season or something more of Orville to come out after this season's done, whether it's a movie or whatever. And I know that's reaching for the stars and it's a long shot, but for this show to really get a lot of burn and of attention, it's going to take that for more Orville to happen after the season. But if we only get 3, I'm content with that. I'm just really curious to see where they're going to go and how the freedom of Hulu is going to allow that and what we're going to see.
Yeah, I think for me, a few things I noticed. I don't know if they get to go this heavy on the main theme of this episode if they're on Fox still. I don't know if Fox lets that fly. 2, just it felt so much more cinematic in how it was filmed and how it was produced. Seeing everything in the Union spaceport and how the other ships around, I thought was outstanding. Obviously, the upgrades within the ship itself, but what I liked too was the things that they didn't change, or if they changed, they changed subtly. The mess hall is still the mess hall. It's got the same chairs, the same tables. You still got Kermit on Mercer's desk. You still have a spiral staircase in the middle of the ship for no apparent reason.
Don't take that away. I love it.
Yeah, no, it's great. I think one of the things with this episode too is that I'm curious to see how they're going to play out characters in this season, because we have a few new characters which we're going to get to in a minute, but obviously we didn't get much of Bortus in this episode. We really didn't get a lot of a few other characters, so it's going to interesting to see how they balance this out. But I feel pretty good about that. But it's kind of like, okay, well, we gave you a facelift, but we still have that same feeling to it. They didn't take away what made the Orville the Orville. The uniforms are still sharp. It's just like, okay, we just have a little extra money. We're giving it a facelift. But I want to ask all of you guys to see if you caught this or not, because you have Lamar's talking about how, like, after all these upgrades, the Orville is going to be on comparison with some of the bigger ships as far as its speed and its power and everything like that. Did it feel like the Orville was kind of getting singled out for some of these extra upgrades that maybe other ships aren't getting? It just felt like Kevin, looks like you have some thoughts on this.
Yeah, I mean, Mercer pretty much kind of helped, have a big reason why they were able to get an advantage on them and turn things around. And I think that if he's not getting promoted, he's like, well, your ship's going to be promoted. Maybe, I don't know. And that we also get a look at, the Union space docks and part more of the fleet. And even in the Orville conference room, you see a painting of one of the space docks, where there's the conversation between Finn and the first officer. Yeah, I mean, I think that the command decisions and the leadership role that we're seeing, it's very subtle, but when you look at the decisions that Mercer's making, like the submarine tactic, I mean, this dude knows what he's doing now. And yet, he's able to still tell Charlie that maybe the decision to, have this robot who tried to kill us remain on board might not be a good decision in the long run, but it's a decision that I made and I'm going to stick with and I'm going to own up to. But he's making these other small decisions when it comes to tactical stuff and these little things that he refers to. And I was going back and watching some of the older episodes. He's now making a name for himself. And I can only assume that throughout the Union Federation, or Union, as I should say, and the leadership and the admirals, he is now making a name for himself. And people are, that's Mercer, that's Mercer's ship. That's the Orville. Maybe it can become like as famous as another starship that we know,
Guys, one other question I have for you before I move on to something else with this topic, though, is let's talk about the time frame it was gone. I kind of mentioned myself, felt like it was like, it felt like there was no time missing at all. Did you guys feel the effect of coming into this after such a long break? Did it feel like, or did you guys feel like you were just jumping right in and felt like no time had passed? Amy, how did you feel about that?
Yeah, I sort of wish I would have done something similar to what Haley did, go on YouTube and, brush up, because I was thinking, the last few episodes wasn't really much about the Kaylon, was it?
No, it was all the time travel stuff.
Yeah, it was all that time travel. And so to jump into the Kaylon, I was like, oh my goodness. And I think you're right, Kevin and Kyle, like when they're switching to Hulu, they can delve into these serious topics that, maybe Fox might not have wanted them to go that deep into. So I can see, I sort of lost my train of thought there, but yeah.
That's okay.
Okay.
What about you, Haley?
Well, again, I mentioned that I went and watched like a recap of season 2 because it had been long enough and I haven't gone back and rewatched it because I've been trying to watch all these other things that have been on my watch list. and get those out of the way. And so it was nice to do that recap because I remembered the Kalon, the two-parter, and then I knew that we had the time travel stuff, but I was like, okay, I've got to have a little something, at least quick recap. And I think I found like a 12-minute video or something, and that was super nice because otherwise I probably would have been like a little bit lost on some of it. But again, I think it was nice that they immediately went to addressing this two-part episode from season 2, essentially the outcome from it.
Kevin, what about you? You've been chomping at the bit. Did you feel the time? Did you feel like as the episode got in, did you feel like the time difference was still kind of there, especially considering the way season 2 ended with focusing on those time travel episodes to go back to the Kalon?
Well, I watched those last 2 episodes because I wanted to kind of get caught up of where we last left the crew. And the Kalon victory, not victory, but the battle that they won and are able to keep the Kalon at bay was because of those decisions that happened in Mercer's relationship, with Kelly Grayson's character. And even though that wasn't the plot A, that was a big part of it because, the whole second date thing came into play and what happened when it did or didn't take. And so the last episode was, them having to fix that issue of what happened. And I did go back and watch Lasting Impressions, the one with Malloy and, falling in love with the girl from the time capsule, which I really liked. But I've definitely felt the time away from the Orville, and I've missed it, and I've been clamoring for so long. And it's nice that it's back, and I hope that it can gain some nice tread and people start talking about it more. And hopefully us here talking about it on the podcast and on YouTube, we can bring some much love and attention to it. So, yeah.
Well, guys, we had a couple of new important additions to the Orville as well. We broke out a brand new crew member. Ladies and gentlemen, of course, this is Ann Winters as Ensign Charlie Burke. Obviously, she played a critical role in this week's episode, especially with her feelings towards Kalon, but also part of the solution to help revive Isaac. What were your guys' first impressions of Ensign Burke? Haley?
Well, I think at least as far as this first episode goes, Ed Mercer sums it up where her monopoly on grief is wearing thin. And I really hope that they not necessarily process her grief and her trauma quickly, but that it's not something that is just her character, because it's very one note and it will get really old really fast. Other than that, like her sciencey stuff, really cool. I'm glad that she can understand fourth dimensional blah 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 stuff. So that's cool.
Kevin, can you understand the fourth dimensional stuff? Because I love my head.
Yeah, no. But Haley has a point that I was curious about, and for me, it didn't feel like it overshadowed her character's debut in this episode, and that was the line that she mentioned, that Haley mentioned, that Mercer said about monopoly on grief, and I thought that was an important line. And I think that this was a great way to introduce a new character, is that you show how she was willing, her character was willing to not only be the one to walk away from the mess hall table, but to come back and confront Isaac of why people are doing this. And I thought that was really important to do. And then when she's able to speak freely, when allowed to, when she is called upon in Mercer's office, she basically tells him, straight up what's happening. And maybe he had an idea, but maybe he didn't have the whole idea. And it was nice that her character was able to do that. But then you see her kind of doing the stuff with having fun with Malloy's, testing the new Union fighter, and doing all that type of thing. So you see that she's able to compartmentalize her emotions and still stick to her duties. And I thought that was a really good thing to kind of show both sides of that. So she's not the one that's like, being the person that's hating on Isaac and then becomes that annoying character that, eventually, you're going to like this person because we're going to learn more about her. But there's a really good balance there. And I thought that was important. They did that, and that they introduce her in this way, because I think that they made her likable, but I think that also she learned a lesson. And I felt that her character did in about that, yes, she can feel that way, and, she'll have to deal with that herself going forward. And I think there's room maybe later this season for her and Isaac to work together, and that would be really cool.
Amy, what about you? How did you feel about our newest ensign?
Yeah, they did a really good job. I felt much compassion for her as she's telling the story to Isaac, and how much that meant, and that loss that she was going through. And then we get the arc, and I loved the last scene where Marcus is talking to her in the mess hall and sort of, pleading with her, like, hey, go help Isaac. And I feel like we get this plea not only from the captain, but from Marcus, and right up to the very end. She's very determined. She is definitely going to do what she wants to do. And I like that she has enough common sense or self-confidence to, tell the captain, hey, can I speak frankly? Because this is what's going on your ship. And I don't think that like that takes an excellent officer to know when is the appropriate time to speak up and when is not, can I please be excused? So she is a really good officer. And I like that we get to see so much of her. And yeah, fourth dimensional geometry, come on, she's speaking my language and even more.
Yeah, so one of the things for me that I felt too with her character was I loved her literally her last line, I didn't do it for you. And what that shows to me is, because I did feel like Mercer said, she's not the only one to capitalize. She's not the only one who lost friends, who lost family, lost loved ones. And then she has a conversation with Marcus, and then when she walks away and says it didn't for you, it shows that there is a compassion. There's some understanding. She might still have nothing but hatred for Isaac, but she wasn't going to let this child suffer and put this on himself. And it shows that there is a heart and there is a compassion there. One of the other things too with this development, with not only with her but with Isaac being resurrected yet again, I'm going to be curious to see if they play up on that anymore during the season, because we know how some of the crew feels. It's like, why does this guy keep getting multiple chances? And so I'm curious to see if that's going to play out, because he's been reactivated or resurrected more than once now. So that will be interesting as well. But you know what? Not only did we have a new member of the crew, and thank God they finally have a navigator. They've been without a navigator since Lamar became chief engineer. So they finally have a permanent navigator. But we also got this beauty. And Haley, you and I are going to fight over who gets to run the test drives on the Union Federation, because I know you want to hit the phaser buttons in this. But the Pterodon Union Federation fighter is showcased.
Dibs.
See, we're all going to be fighting over it, obviously. But a great scene with Malloy giving it the test flight of it. Obviously, I think this is going to be something that is going to be something we see many a time throughout the season, Kevin.
Oh, yeah. Was anyone else getting Delta Flyer vibes from Voyager when Paris made the Delta Flyer, that super fast shuttle? And you loved, you saw him working on it like it was a new car in the garage or an old car you're fixing up or whatever it is. And I'm curious to see these get more spin, I guess, in the future episodes. It's very sleek. And apparently they had a live mock-up of this that was used on this show when they did they did the premiere, I guess, recently. I think it was somewhere in LA, if I remember correctly. They actually had a live mock-up of this. And man, I would love to climb up in that thing and get some pictures. That thing just looks so cool. And it's small, it's sleek, and it's going to be interesting to see how it's used defensively and offensively as well.
Haley, are you ready to hit the phasers with the Pterodon?
Yeah, and I was thinking about it. It completely makes sense given where we've left off from season 2 that they would have not just a shuttle, but they would have something that would be able to be small, maneuverable, and fight back, much like the Krill have. And so I'm really kind of intrigued as to how many other versions of this there's going to be with different dinosaur names. I guess we're going with dinosaur names with these things, maybe a little bit. It does kind of remind me of a oyster shucker, the shape. I only say that because the company that I work for is called Pearl, and management was given little bags to carry our stuff in, and there was an oyster shucker in there of all things. So that's the shape made me think of that.
Amy, are you going for a ride in the Pterodon?
Sure. Yeah, I will. It sort of reminded me, and just coming off the hills of Top Gun, and sort of the camera angles and stuff like that. So
we were inverted. Kevin, I got to ask you, because I kind of noticed, does it look like the shuttle itself had a little bit of a different design as well?
Oh yeah, the shuttle did. Even the little scanners did that Lamar was using. There's all these little upgrades and stuff like that. And I think that's smart to keep doing that with each season and stuff. I think that's cool that when you look back at the first season, it's fun to see it age, but also come up with something fancy and new. And I just had a couple of other observations before we end this part. Is that Lieutenant Dan sighting? I was happy to see that he wasn't written off. He had a small moment there, and also too Dikili biology. Just want to kind of bring that up. That's the alien creature that Lamar was having a moment with in bed.
I'm just gonna say painful. That looked painful, like it might be kind of painful. I don't know.
I just like to know that Dikilis have also the same lust for Limahal sticks, otherwise known as rock candy, like I do.
So, Haley, before we move on, any other final thoughts here on this premiere of the Orville?
No, looking forward to seeing more, though. I'm excited.
Amy?
Yeah, I can't wait to get this ensemble and see where they go. I'm very, very excited. It's beautiful. Yeah, I'm just excited.
It's just a joy to have the Orville back, but we haven't forgot about Trek. We're going to take a quick break, but you know what else is happening on the Fandom Podcast Network? And when we come back, it's time to talk a little bit of Strange New Worlds.
Thank you for listening. We hope you're enjoying this podcast. We'd like to continue to feed your ears by inviting you to listen to these other great shows on the Fandom Podcast Network. It starts with our flagship show, Culture Clash, discussing the latest in entertainment pop culture. Bloody Kings, Immortals Take Notice, our show covering the entire Highlander universe. Couch Potato Theaters, where we celebrate our favorite movies. Time Warp, the Fandom Flashback podcast discussing a year in movies and our favorite retro movie and TV pop culture topics. Good Evening, discussing all things Alfred Hitchcock. Union Federation, our Star Trek and Orville show. Hair Metal, the 80s and early 90s rock metal podcast. Type 40, our show covering the time-traveling Doctor Who universe with host Dan Hadley. Lethal Mullet, an 80s and 90s action film podcast with host Adam P. O'Brien. Also check out the Lethal Mullet Network for more great podcasts. What a Piece of Junk, a Star Wars podcast with hosts Scott, Derek, and Nathan. Making Treks, a Star Trek podcast, a deep dive into the final frontier with host Mark Newbold and Adam P. O'Brien. And check out our newest shows, The Fandom Show, our monthly Fandom Podcast Network live YouTube exclusive show about the month's hottest topics in fandom, and the FPN True Believers MCU podcast, discussing the Marvel Cinematic Universe and the related Marvel television and streaming MCU universe, including the connections to the original Marvel comics. You can find the Fandom Podcast Network on several platforms. Please subscribe to the Fandom Podcast Network YouTube channel to receive notifications of new podcast episodes and live events. You can enjoy all of the Fandom Podcast Network audio podcasts on our master feed at fpnet.podbean.com. The Fandom Podcast Network is on all major podcast platforms, including Apple Podcast and iTunes. You can find the Fandom Podcast Network on Facebook. You can email us at fandompodcastnetwork@gmail.com. You can also find the Fandom Podcast Network on Instagram at Fandom Podcast Network and on Twitter at FanPod Network. Thank you for listening, and remember, respect others and enjoy your fandom.
No, I'm telling you, triple slippers will not get you bingo. Oh, are we back, guys? Sorry about that. Have a little game going. We'll go talk about that in a little bit. It is time to talk a little Strange New Worlds. Episode 5 already. It's going by so fast. Real quick though, Kevin, you've been away for a few weeks. I want to get you just real quick your thoughts of the last few episodes of Strange New Worlds since you haven't been here. Kind of catch us up on how you're enjoying the show.
I had a feeling you were going to ask me that, which is why I had to remind myself to pop up the last 2 episodes to remind her what they were. Ghost of Illyria, dark episode. Memento Mori, dark episode. Good though. Like I said, I'm loving this episodic television again with Star Trek, and it was. I'm just going to say I enjoyed them. I don't want to go over too much of both of them, and some great little character moments as well. But a little darker than I expected for 2 back-to-back episodes. To be honest with you, that's a bad thing. I just wasn't expecting it. So with this episode, Spock Amok, it was nice to have some fun.
I thought there was a lot of light in Ghosts of Illyria. What are you talking about? Well, it is time to talk the latest episode of Strange New Worlds, Spock Amok. Miss Stoddard, would you care to give us our Captain's Log entry for Strange New Worlds?
Of course. As the Enterprise undergoes repairs at Starbase 1, the crew go on shore leave. Number 1 and Noonien Singh apprehend 2 ensigns conducting an unauthorized spacewalk as part of a game popular among lower-ranked crew called Enterprise Bingo, and discover their own reputations as fun killers. They try the game out themselves and succeed. Spock finds himself frustrated in furthering his relationship with T'Pring. They undertake a special mind meld ceremony but accidentally swab each other's katras. Spock attempts to carry out T'Pring's job, convincing lapsed Vulcans to return to logic, only to resort to subduing one of them. Admiral April calls Pike and T'Pring, in Spock's body, to negotiate a treaty with Rongovians, a race of aliens known for their radical empathy, who are considering allying with the Federation, but also with either the Klingons or Romulans. Pike figures out the Rongovians' motives and bluntly explains to them, convincing the Rongovians to sign the treaty. M'Benga and Chapel use medical technology to help Spock and T'Pring return each other's katras to their proper bodies. The 2 Vulcans consummate their relationship.
Bow, chicka, Vulcan, wow, wow.
No, all I have to say is dun 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 dun.
Okay, guys. First reactions to this episode. This is one of the more fun episodes of Strange New Worlds. Miss Amy Nelson, I'm going to start with you on this.
Yeah. So the last 2 episodes, I've just had questions. I really haven't been on board, but man, this one, loving it. This really might be one of my all-time favorite treks. I'm in love with this episode. I was laughing. I was understanding everything. I didn't have any questions. It was interesting. I love this episode. Thought it was so much fun and a good message too.
Haley, you haven't mind melded with anybody recently or soul shared or anything like that, right? I want to make sure it's really you on this podcast.
No, it definitely is me. I am the ultimate winner of Enterprise Bingo, just saying. But no, I loved this episode. It was such a good callback to Amok time with so many different things, but I really loved all the interactions. And I have to say, learning out that number 1 and La'an are fun killers and they didn't know it was perfect. It was just great. Really, really spot on. And I also loved this other little story with the Rongovians and and where we get this empathy, and so like both stories really worked well together, and I was down for it so much.
Kevin, a lot of fun to be had in this episode. Little Freaky Friday, a little vice versa. It's all going on here, Kev.
You know, Amy, it's interesting. You said, you know, one of your favorite episodes, and I saw one of my friends on social media say that he felt this was the best episode of Star Trek in the last 20 years. And I could definitely see why. Why? Because it was fun. Something we've gotten away with recently of new Trek. Let's be perfectly honest. And being able to break away from the norm and do this and do it in a smart way to where you can have plot A and plot B and plot C, when you think about it, all be fun in their own ways, whether it's the thing with Spock and T'Pring, with Nurse Chapel in there, or you know, the of course the bingo and having number one and the security chief play the bingo, and then of course the negotiations and how that goes about as well. This was, and not only that, it felt like Trek too. Really felt like Trek. With the obvious call outs and such. And it was also good character development for several characters as well. And I just give a shout out to the green tunic that Pike was wearing there. I love that look. Kind of made me thinking maybe some Star Trek costume cosplay. Maybe I could pull that off. We'll see. I don't know. But yeah, absolutely love this episode. Probably my favorite new live action Star Trek episode. I'm going to go that far. I'm not going to say it was the best ever of all Star Trek, but it's definitely because there was just so much to enjoy about this episode. And I think after the last two episodes too, it was nice to just kind of relax and have fun with the crew, have fun with the writers. You could tell the writers were having, this is like when the writers got together for Trials and Tribulations for Deep Space Nine. You know, you can kind of get that feeling they were just like, oh, we got to do this. Oh, we got to do this. Yes, there is Enterprise bingo. If there was, what would be on it? You know, that type of stuff. So, yeah.
It's great.
I really liked this episode. I thought it was a ton of fun. Might be questioning on Nurse Chapel just a little bit. I'm just saying. I really liked her in this episode. Thought she was phenomenal. Loved T'Pring. Spock has done very well for himself in life, and just a lot of fun and a lot of really interesting moments, I think, in this episode as well. But we have some trivia now. Kevin, would you care for, you know, your voice is still a little shaky, would you care for me to pick out some trivia for you for this week?
I can help a little bit here. Yeah.
Okay, well, what did you find in your security logs for some interesting trivia then, Mr. Reitzel?
All right. In Spock's dream of the Kai-Ifi fight, Cal-Ifi fight.
Khalifi.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
The music is the same in the Star Trek Amok time. Of course, Haley brilliantly displayed earlier.
So
when
good.
Spock fights Kirk. Yes, I love that.
Did you also know? Oh, go ahead. No, go ahead.
No. What were you going to say?
I was going to say that the swiper across the chest is the same one that Kirk gets. Same spot.
Yeah. But I like that we got a little updated version of those weapons. I thought that was really, really cool.
Mm-hmm.
Which is it's kind of rising up of my favorite Star Trek weapons now that they have an updated version. Because if you look at the originals, they're kind of dorky looking, but these new ones look pretty badass. One of the names signed on the hull is L. Ball, the hull actually. That's where the Scorch is, in honor of Lucille Ball. Spock and T'Pring exchange consciousness similar to the experience of Captain Kirk and Dr. Lester in Star Trek Turnabout Intruder 1969 and also the movie Freaky Friday. The solar ship, and I love this because it totally brought it back. The solar ship is similar to the Bajoran lightship flown by Benjamin and Jake in Star Trek Deep Space Nine Explorers 1995.
That's actually
Kevin,
the solar ship too.
Yeah.
They did call it a solar sail ship.
Solar sail ship now.
Mm-hmm.
Is that ship, and I'm blanking on the movie, but it reminded me of like something. It was a luxury cruiser design of a ship in another film. Is it ringing any bells with you? Because I had, especially with like how the sail came out.
You know what it reminds me actually, Kyle, is in the original Tron, that thing that they had to fly.
Yeah.
The thing they had to fly at the end to escape, and there was this sail version of it, and they were on that beam or whatever it is, and so I kind of got that vibe. What about you?
Well, yeah, I was definitely getting that vibe in the name of a solar sail, because I think that was the name you used in Tron as well. So I steal one of these pieces of trivia though, Kevin, because you talked about it a little earlier. Pike wears the green captain's wrap uniform, which features a Starfleet badge at the waist, but also wears a Starfleet badge on the left breast, as one would with the standard duty uniform. Previous captains seeing the wrap uniform did not wear a second badge on the breast, as the badge at the waist makes the standard badge redundant. It was just like you said, it was just so cool to see that green wrap.
Yep. In Enterprise Bingo, an unseen task was having the medical tricorder show a Vulcan marsupial. This is a plot item from Star Trek Lifeform, the episode Lifeform from Star Trek Voyager. There, Dr. Zimmerman manipulates a tricorder to mess with a holographic doctor. As the Voyager episode was set about 100 years after this one, it could be inferred that Dr. Zimmerman got the idea from Enterprise Bingo. It's a stretch, but it's fun to think about, though. And one of the other names signed on the hull of the USS Enterprise was Peter Davis. I thought that was nice. Upon greeting the delegates on their surprise arrival, Pike states, "If I knew you were coming early, I could have cooked you up something, some Earth specialty," jokingly phrasing the 1950 Eileen Barton song, "If I knew you were coming, I would have baked a cake."
Lots of trivia for this Strange New Worlds episode, but which was one of the things that I think makes this show fun too, is how much it can call back to the original series and other things in Trek, and I think they've done a very good job with that so far. But guys, I'm going to power up the transporter. I get to play a role of Chief Kyle. I really don't know any nicknames. Don't ask me or anything like that. And I'm really not that mean. I'm really not. I'm just saying. But let's activate that transporter and get into our Star Trek away missions. Okay, guys, away mission number 1. Freaky Friday. The theme for this week's episode really felt like it was seeing things through another's eyes or perspective, whether it was literally like with Spock and T'Pring, or on a more perspective sense with both Una and Leanne trying a little Ensign fun, or even with Pike and Rogarians, where he had to learn how they saw things and then use that perspective in the negotiations. How do you think this theme flowed through this episode? So let's start with our Freaky Friday group of Spock and T'Pring. Amy, how did you feel about the perspectives that they were trying to play up here?
Yeah, and kudos to you for identifying that thing, because I wasn't quite sure, but when you laid it out, that's exactly what it is. Like, we are seeing through another perspective. And oh my gosh, I absolutely loved it. My favorite line has to be when they're talking to Chris, i.e. Captain. It's like, obviously our mannerisms are different. You can tell. I'm just laughing out loud. That's my favorite. But I love how they both are confident in each other's abilities, and that they are going to meet this challenge, even though there's hijinks, which neither of them enjoy. I love their relationship. I love T'Pring right from the beginning. And then we get her entering Spock's quarters, and I was like, ooh, she's being nitpicky and she's being nagging. And why is she being this way? Maybe just to offset sort of the troubles that they're having. But I loved her at the end, and she's so confident, very capable, very efficient, great partnership for Spock. But then you guys, what's going on with Spock and Chapel? Can they just be friends? But then, like, she got a flirty look when they were sitting at the dinner table. Because I want Spock and T'Pring. But I loved the transformation between those two. Loved it.
Haley, what about your thoughts? We're looking through different perspectives. We have Spock and T'Pring. We're doing the Freaky Friday. We've got Una and Leon doing trying to live life like an ensign, play a little bingo, try to be fun. And of course, I again for me, Pike figuring out how the negotiations are going and how they see things, and it's just more great stuff from Anson Mount. I could rave on for that forever. But what stood out for you within this theme, Haley?
Yeah, so I really liked this because from the first of the episode when T'Pring walks in and Spock's dream about, a nightmare essentially of how T'Pring maybe doesn't want to be in a relationship with him because he's too human. And that callback to that fight within himself for so long. And so I really liked that, their Katras switched for way longer than they were supposed to, and that they couldn't get him back because I really think that helps bring them closer together. And that really worked in this episode because they had to do each other's job as the other person. And that can only help each of them individually, but then help them together as well. And I really love that. I think my favorite was when they were standing next to each other and Spock has his hands like T'Pring holds her. So I thought it was great. I was like, oh my gosh. Just classic. And I liked that we saw Spock not quite confident that he could do T'Pring's job. That was really quite interesting for me. And I think just because, Spock has struggled with, his human half, and he's worried that he's not logical enough to do what T'Pring does. And T'Pring really kind of had the confidence to do what Spock does. Even though she starts to fail at it and Captain Pike has to step in, knowing obviously that it's not Spock, that it's T'Pring. And that kind of gives him the insight later for what he's going to need in these negotiations with the Rongovians. And so I liked that kind of played into that later. Again, number one in La'an, where fun goes to die. And, I love that they're trying to justify, like, we're fun. We do fun things. I'm going to go do this thing because their version of fun is way different than anybody else's. And I love that, they're like, okay, we're going to do this. We're going to do this Enterprise bingo. And it's just hilarious. It's great. It was nice to see them get out of their shell. And you have to wonder, was the Enterprise bingo not around when they were ensigns on the Enterprise or when they were younger? Because it seems like this should be a thing on every ship. I'm just saying.
I'm going to guess there probably was Enterprise bingo. Just nobody would say anything to them because they figured they'd probably report it because they were the no fun people.
True.
Kevin, what about you? What did you think of this week's theme and how it played out?
I love the Freaky Friday thing going on. That's always fun when that happens. And the fact that you can make it believable when it comes to Vulcans, because let's be honest, Vulcans are always weird. Okay. But they're written well, but I love them, but they're weird, and we're still learning about them 50 something years later. It's crazy. And, the fact that T'Pring is back in this new character, not a new character, but a new actress playing her is good too, because I think that Gia Sandhu, who plays T'Pring, was fantastic in this episode. And I like the fact that we can learn more about Spock through another actor, and that we've been getting different sides to his character with each incarnation of each actor's portrayal of Spock. And I think that's important, and that we're getting that in this. And I like it when you can have Vulcans and Spock be funny, especially I'm forgetting the terminology that T'Pring uses, not shenanigans, but it's time for hijinks. Thank you. The fact that they use that human term I thought was great. But I don't know how far they're going to take this relationship, but it was nice to see T'Pring return, especially after the first time we see her and the moment that Spock has to kind of leave the situation that they were just about to have. I mean, wow. It's nice to see that just wasn't a one-time thing, and just little things about how, like, he like moves the glass and then she comes in and moves it back, just little character moments like that made this a lot of fun. And Una being kind of like, I loved that when they were interrogating the ensigns, that it was Una like playing the good cop, and then the security officer was playing the bad cop.
Yes.
And the two different responses that they were getting from that. I thought that was a great scene, and how that eventually led them trying it out themselves, especially when they're like, shooting the phaser. It's like, ow, that stung. Things like that. I thought was great, because I as fans were watching this going, I so want to play Enterprise Bingo.
Yes, so much. Yeah.
Absolutely with that. Guys, I want to move on to Away Mission 2, getting to know your crew. We've been doing this every week as we're getting to know this new crew for Strange New Worlds. And guys, the focus this week is the lovely Nurse Chapel, who, yes, marry me now, please. I'm just throwing it out there. She was great in this episode. Really, I think steals the episode. And there's so much fun going on, but her conversations with Spock, trying to help Spock realize what's going on with his relationship, seeing her deal with like, oh, there's this guy who likes me, but I really am not that interested in him. It's fun. It's whatever. But her just giving insight to everybody, and also calling the doctor out about his fly fishing hat. I mean, you don't call a guy out about his fly fishing hat. Come on now. But she was wonderful in this episode, and I think she was kind of our spotlight character to really get to see a lot more of. We also got a little bit more understanding, I think, of Spock in an interesting way too, seeing him really struggle between his human and his Vulcan side, and the anxiety that actually causes him. But guys, let's start off with our lovely nurse, Mr. Reitzel.
Yeah, this is one of the characters I've been really interested about, and I was curious to see how they were going to develop. And of course, there was that little early flirting that they had as well early on. She was flirting with Spock, and then she was kind of called out on it, which I thought was interesting. I think that she might have a little crush on him, and that's fine. But I think that she respects too that he's in a relationship. But I like the fact that you also see her kind of on a date, and her sizing up this guy that obviously is not right for her, and he's obviously kind of into himself a little bit as well. And I thought it was interesting too, and very funny that she was the one that was brought into the secret that Spock and T'Pring had switched bodies, and that she's talking to Spock and T'Pring's body. I thought that was interesting, because I got to tell you, it's just a guy talking here, but if there was a guy talking to Spock and T'Pring's body, conversation might have went a little bit different. I'm just going to say. I'm going to leave it at that. Kyle knows what I'm talking about. I'm sure everyone else might have an idea. But I thought that was very fun, and I like that we're getting these moments with these characters. And Amy, I'm actually kind of curious to see what you think, because I remember when we first covered the first episode or two, you weren't quite sure about her character. You might have had questions, and I was kind of curious where you stand now.
Yeah, Nurse Chapel, like I said, I had that question, like, is she flirting with Spock? Is she wanting, as she's describing what a relationship is and why she doesn't want one, like, I'm thinking, is she wanting one with Spock? I don't know. So that's interesting. But I was really impressed, actually, with how the other characters interacted with her. I am definitely huge in love with Melissa Navia, who plays Ortegas. Their friendship just really reminded me of Crusher and Troy. They share with each other. She knows all about Chapel's, previous dates, has the history there. So it feels like they're very tight with each other. And then, of course, when she's talking to T'Pring/Spock, like, yeah, Spock tells this is what's happening. He obviously confides in her. So I feel like she definitely is this awesome, fun, amazing person. I'm still warming up to her, but this episode definitely helped change my mind.
Haley, any thoughts on our favorite nurse? At least in my opinion, my favorite new nurse.
No, I really enjoy this iteration of a younger Nurse Chapel. I'm really enjoying this character. I think she brings a lot. I love her making fun of Dr. Mabenga's fly fishing hat, which oddly, and I know this was brought up and we didn't mention it in the trivia. Those are actually not fly fishing lures. Those are regular
Mm-mm.
fishing lures. And his rod later on is not a fly fishing rod. And I used to fish, so I definitely know my stuff. But I love
I'm
his
right
hat
there.
anyway. Because my dad had hats like that that had, the fly fishing lures and just all the stuff in it. So, that brought me back to my childhood when I was little. So, but I like that. I don't think necessarily she's flirting with Spock. I think it's just how she carries herself. And so, she was trying to relate to him personally and help him understand, just because he is part Vulcan and part human doesn't mean that he has to choose one or over the other, and that he can be a combination of both. And kind of use that how he wants to in his relationship with T'Pring, kind of be a good combination and a good balance of both, because T'Pring loves him for both, right? And so I think their relationship is more of that kind of thing. But I love her character, so.
Yeah, I think it was a great building moment for her and this episode as well. And like I said, I like what they did with Spock here. It was some great insight. Before I move on, any final thoughts on this episode, Kevin?
I just want to mention, and you kind of touched on it earlier, Amy. I love the fact that when it comes to Nurse Chapel and Erica Ortegas, there's still a 24th version of the call. I'll get you out of the date call. When she mentions, do you want me to keep the communicator on? I thought that was kind of funny. But can I give a shout out to another person I don't think we're going to get a highlight because he's not part of the main crew? I want to give a shout out to Chief Kyle, because I love the fact that he's getting little moments inside the transporter room. And as we've learned, lots of things happen in the transporter room when it comes to Star Trek history. And we got a lot of Chief O'Brien moments as well. And you see him working away on those things, and whether it's serious moments or funny moments. But also, how old is he? I mean, he looks like he's 15 or 16 years old. But I just want to give a props to Chief Kyle. Love this kid.
But he's so mean. He's just so mean. I'm just saying. Haley, any final thoughts on this episode of Strange New Worlds?
No, like Kevin said, I am loving this episodic, and I'm so happy to see each thing be different. And, it reminds me of book series that I read where there's character development, but each thing is its own, each book is its own. And I love it. And I'm so happy to finally have something like this, because so much television nowadays is not single episode anymore.
Amy, what about you? Anything you want to get a last word here as far as the episode of Strange New Worlds?
Yeah, but okay, so I don't know if I want to do it here, or are we going to come back and compare both of them? Because I found some similarities.
We'll get to that because first, normally this is where we would talk about the Ready Room. However, no offense to Will Wheaton, we love Will Wheaton, but there's something much more important. Because, ladies and gentlemen, it is time to play everybody's favorite new game, Enterprise Bingo!
Yes.
While most of the Enterprise is on shore leave, Una and Security Chief Leon discover two ensigns playing Enterprise Bingo, a tradition amongst the lower decks. They decide to play the game themselves because, they want to be the fun people. They want to be there. But Kevin, in your security logs, you have a little trivia about Enterprise Bingo.
Yeah, so it's revealed that there's this challenge game played by ensign and lower rank crewmen, with which, Leon and number one were previously unfamiliar. This would indicate that either Enterprise Bingo is a newer game or that neither served aboard the Enterprise at a low rank. If the latter is the case, it would also indicate that similar game does not exist on other ships in this fleet. So, we have an actual listing of what was on that actual Enterprise Bingo that they discovered. And the 10 items from the complete the 10 items from the list below. Don't get caught. 1, use the transporter to reflavor gum. Phaser stun duel. Turbo lift 2-floor shout challenge. That was hilarious. Set universal translator to Andorian. Gravity boot hang challenge. Medical tricorder challenge. Vulcan marsupial. Food replicator challenge. Durian fruit. Sneak a tribble into the transporter buffer. Sit in the captain's chair. EV suit challenge. Unsanctioned spacewalk. And last but not least, sign the Scorch, which apparently is a place somewhere in there on the hull of the Enterprise that is, not changed much. So people sign it and stuff like that. So I have a question for you guys. 2-part question, actually. What bingo challenges would you add to Enterprise Bingo or any other Enterprise ship that would include the TOS and TOS movie eras or the TNG and TNG movie eras? And for fun, if there was an Orville bingo, if there was some lower deck ensigns serving on the Orville, what type of bingo would you throw out there? Just throw out 1 or 2 for each. Let's start with you, Kyle. What would you do?
Okay, so I'm thinking I got to do something with a shuttlecraft. I don't know quite what yet, but I got to do something with a shuttlecraft. I'm still trying to figure that out. I'm thinking food replicator. What is the most disgusting thing you can make in the food replicator, or set the food replicator so everything tastes like a certain thing? No matter what it replicates, it all tastes like chocolate or something like that. I just have to add to, if we do not in the next season of Lower Decks have an Enterprise Bingo episode of Lower Decks, I'm going to be completely disappointed.
What about you, Haley? Giving you some time to think here. What would you add to Enterprise Bingo? Remember, any version of Enterprise from any era. And do you have something that you would do on Orville Bingo?
Okay. To bring up, Kevin, or Kyle, you say, food replicator. I mean, it's already on here, the durian fruit. I don't think that's probably the one. I don't think I would pass out no on that one. So hardcore. But I'm trying to sit here and think, and growing up with TNG, Enterprise Bingo, I would have to say close the door to the warp core and do a barrel roll. And for Orville, and for the Orville, Orville Bingo. Gosh, run down the spiral staircase without falling.
Actually, I meant to throw in. I got a couple things for you for Orville Bingo, because it's 2 things that have already been on the show.
Hold on, Kyle. You've had your chance, and I don't want you to take mine away in case that is. So you're going to wait, because I want to say mine right now. Okay, so hold on. Okay, for Enterprise, I would first of all say, in front of Commander Riker, do the over the leg, sit down on the chair move while he's watching or in the room. Do that, okay? And there has to be someone that sees that happen, okay? This one, these 2 I think would be fun for TNG, maybe worth extra points, is go to Mott the Barber and ask for the Picard cut, okay? Or go to Guinan and ask for a Sumerian sunset. That could be excellent there. For the Orville, I would suggest you have to do something with going up to one of the Mocklins and maybe asking for a Latchcom, learning how to play Latchcom. that might send a lot of ensigns to Dr. Finn, but I thought that would be kind of fun. Or maybe trying to set up Malloy on a date. That'd be kind of fun. Something like that. Okay, Kyle, we're going to get to you, Amy, but Kyle, what did you want to say regarding the Orville?
Well, see, to me, they've already started the list, because there's at least a couple of the 3 things I can think of that should be on the list for Orville Bingo, period. Getting one of Malloy's legs, just like Isaac did. Putting the Mr. Potato Head on Isaac's head. You gotta get away with that one. And I think too, getting a picture in Mercer's office with his Kermit.
That one's a good one there. I think that would be a good one. Trying to do the Isaac thing right now just might be bad timing.
Yeah.
Well, to remind you guys though, these all have to be things where you don't get caught, so no one else can be around when you do them. So, or it's a risk maneuver where you could potentially get caught. So really, it wouldn't involve somebody else doing something.
Honestly, too. Wait. The other one for the Orville would be sanitizing the pea corner.
All right, Amy. All right, Amy. You've heard some of our choices. I know you probably have some TNG thoughts there. What would you add to the Enterprise bingo? Because I can only hope, and as Kyle mentioned with Lower Decks, that this is a thing that just stays in the Enterprise, whatever incarnation the Enterprise is. There will always be an Enterprise bingo.
Yeah, this is so interesting. I didn't think of anything. Okay, so I know one for Orville. I think you need to open a jar of pickles. Hermetically sealed, or some 200-year-old.
What like in front of Mercer, or just like carry one around near him or something like that? I
don't know. It's bingo. You've got someone who's a witness. I don't know. And then I was sort of thinking, cause and effect came into my mind. I don't know why, but messing with Beverly's one of her experiments. I don't know.
Here's a good one. Get a picture of yourself wearing Geordie's visor.
Ooh,
that is a good one.
Yeah.
Or maybe playing one of, because I don't know how, like, if certain holographic programs are security coded to the person that does it, or can you go in and play one of Picard's things, Dixon Hill things, could you do that? That might be kind of a fun thing to do, something with a hologram. But yeah, that'd be kind of interesting.
Reprogram the food replicator so Earl Grey tastes like hot chocolate.
Yeah. That's a good one.
Oh boy. Oh gosh, I'm trying to think of one for like TOS, like I don't know. Yeah, I can't think of anything.
Steal Kirk's little black space book.
Yeah, I know, right?
Oh boy.
One of the things you don't want to do is be on an away mission.
Yeah, exactly.
Really not.
So as we have
I had just had one for DS9. Yeah. That game that they play in Friends where they can't drop the ball? Do that with Cisco's baseball.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah. To see how long you could go without dropping it and without getting in trouble.
Yeah, you have to get into his office first. That would be interesting.
Yeah, exactly. So I think everybody here has officially got bingo. So we're going to all sign the Enterprise Scorch Plate here. But before we go, guys, I want to give you each a chance. Any final thoughts? Amy, I know you had something you wanted to say as far as a tie-in between this week's Orville and Strange New Worlds.
Okay, you guys, seriously, some pretty cool connections. They both start out, their cold open is a dream sequence, and not just a dream, but a scary dream. So they have that in common. They both have shots on the whole specific to one panel, like because the bingo, they had to sign the one panel. And then at the beginning, they were refitting what Lamar was saying. They both have shots of walking on the hull. They both have the exterior shots. They both are trying to understand the crew a little bit more, where Mercer, who's the first officer?
Grayson.
Yeah, Grayson, where she's like, oh, I'm going to have to improve morale. And we have Enterprise bingo going on. So improving morale there. I'm like, there's a lot of similarities between those.
They share a mind.
Yes. And I love seeing the connection. It's like, oh, it's so lovely.
That's cool.
what about you, Kaylee? Any final thoughts on either of these wonderful shows for this week?
No, it's nice to have the Orville back. I'm looking forward to seeing where the season goes from here, especially given, how heavy this first episode was. Hulu's already showing the next episode, actually supposed to drop on Wednesday. I don't know if you guys caught that. I was on social media like on Wednesday later in the day, and I saw people already posting about the Orville. And so we actually watched it Wednesday night.
I think that's a
So
smart move.
just to let you guys know.
To stay ahead
Yeah.
of Star Trek's drop on Thursday. I think that's smart.
Yeah, and so it does show like the episode 2 is already there. It's just not dropped yet. So and it does say Wednesday. So that's kind of nice. So I'm looking forward to where this goes. And again, I'm just really enjoying this episodic with Strange New Worlds and getting to know these characters. And I was apprehensive with Spock again with Discovery, but as I see Ethan Peck portray Spock more, and then again, we're not discussing it, but he does talk about it in the Ready Room, so you guys should definitely check it out if you haven't watched it. And kind of becoming this character was really nice to get his insight into how he's doing it. I'm really kind of enjoying this portrayal and getting to know these characters where we kind of know them already from the original series, some of them, but the rest of them are all brand new. And so I'm here for the ride and I'm enjoying it.
Yep, it's been a great ride. Kevin, what about you? Any final thoughts on these episodes?
Haley did a great job of kind of putting my thoughts together, and I just want to echo that. And it's nice that I know that these two are going to share our attention for the next 5 weeks together as we we get the latter half of Strange New Worlds, and then of course we get the first half of the 10 episodes that we're getting from the Orville. But I kind of like that because I'm enjoying Strange New Worlds immensely right now, and what they're doing there. And I feel like when the Orville's back, that's just feel at home, and that anticipation of the new episode. And it's nice to hear what you said, Haley, that we'll get it maybe a day earlier now, and that's a smart move, I think, on their part to get out there earlier in the week. So I'm excited.
Yeah, can we move it to Tuesdays? That's all I'm saying, because we do have like Marvel and stuff on Disney Plus that comes out every Wednesday. So I'm just trying to spread the love, man. Just spread the love. But before we close out of here, we got one more last piece of business to take care of. So it's time to open up some subspace signals. So, of course, you can find the Union Federation podcast on both the Fandom Podcast Network and on the BQN Network. That partnership is going strong. And, of course, that also means you can find Galaxy Class and All Good Things now on the feed for the Fandom Podcast Network as well. It has been great to have this wonderful partnership with the BQN, and you're going to be seeing some of the faces and hearing some of the voices of the BQN coming on to talk about the Orville and Strange New Worlds as we keep going, because they've reached out to me. They said, we want to talk the Orville. So, Miss Nelson, you got to keep your troops in line over there. They'll all get their turn. Of course, like I was talking about, the BQN network. You got some great things going on over there, Miss Nelson. What's happening on the BQN right now?
Well, we have our Infinite Diversity, which is covering the new Star Trek. So they, of course, are covering Strange New Worlds currently. Galaxy Class, we are just covering next generation topics. We just did another Batleth battle where we pair 2 episodes together and figure out who comes out victorious. All Good Things sort of talks about all of Star Trek, so we get to enjoy all of that. We also have Mickey's Marvels, which is about Disney, and they're covering Obi-Wan, which is, oh my gosh, what a great show. We have our History with Zilogis, which is just a real quick 5 to 10 minute, just your little nugget of history every day. It's not every day, but twice a week. So that's really nice. And yeah, that's what we have over there on BQN. So check us out.
And of course, you can find all the great shows of the Fandom Podcast Network on the Fandom Podcast homepage, fpnet.podbean.com. And of course, too, on all the great major podcast catchers out there. Of course, if you're watching on YouTube, you know where our YouTube page is. Please subscribe, like, share us out there. We love your comments and everything. And of course, you can find us all over the place on social media too. I'm Kyle. You can find me on social media on Twitter at @KyleW or on Instagram at @KyleFandom. Kevin, where can people find you on the social medias?
You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Spartan_Phoenix. And of course, you can find me on the Union Federation Facebook group as well.
Haley, what about you?
You can find me on Twitter. I am at Trekkie01D. I'm also a nice little lurker in the corner, not the P corner, on our Facebook group.
Oh, you're not going for that piece of Orville bingo, huh?
No. I wouldn't touch that corner with a 10-foot pole.
I don't blame you. And of course, Amy, where can people find you besides the BQN, which of course you can find the BQN on Twitter and Instagram at BQN Podcast, but where can they find you on other social media places? Because you're just assimilating the world. Let's be honest.
Okay. My core, there's something going on with my mic. Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Yes.
Okay. All right. I'm going to go fast because something's going on. It's the Borg nanoprobes apparently infecting me over here. You can find me on Twitter at Miss Amy Nelson. And in our Facebook group. So find me there.
Of course, too, you can find the Union Federation on Twitter at UnionFedPod or visit our wonderful Facebook group where we keep you updated on everything that's happening on Trek and the Orville. Guys, I want to thank you for this great live episode. It's been a blast with the Orville back and, of course, the greatness of Strange New Worlds. And let's not forget our look into the Orb of Prophecy as Strange New Worlds Season 1 continues with episode 6 coming on June 9th and the Orville New Horizons apparently coming out on Wednesday with episode 2. And of course, we will be covering all of these great shows on the Union Federation podcast with our amazing crew. Thank you guys so much. Thank you to all of our wonderful listeners out there, anybody who watched us via video on YouTube or on Facebook. It's a pleasure to be able to have some fun with you and talk these great shows. Until next time, ladies and gentlemen, hailing frequencies are now closed.